Here we go. We're live. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Witch Bitch, where we talk the real tea. And today we have the beautiful Morgan Lee on. I'm so honored, so excited. We both are so honored and excited. Um, while people are coming in the first couple minutes, we usually just ask the question, what was your awakening story? How did you wake up?
Oh, okay. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. I think I was always awake, but I didn't know I was awake. Like I was the gypsy of the family, the one that was saying when babies are coming or someone's getting married or you're going to meet someone or shit, the house is on fire. We've got to go over there, and it was, and we're almost. So that was always there, but I became very corporate. I worked at Bankers Trust and I was very corporate, wearing, country road suits and all that sort of stuff. And I think I hit about 30 and I had a really bad coccyx, horrendous coccyx pain, and I'd tried everything over the years. And one of the ladies at work said, "You need to come to see me. I'm a Bowen therapist." And I'm like, "Oh, no, that sounds too weird. That's way too woo-woo for me. I'm not doing that." But after another 6 months, I'm like, I can't stand this pain. So I went and saw her, and she laid me on a massage table. And within moments really, of her putting her hands on me, Merlin came. And I was like, oh my God. And he just did all this stuff with me. I wasn't even aware of her at all. She could have been doing anything, but he just took me through this whole process. And I got up off the table and wondered what on earth had happened. And then I went into almost, I'd call it like a Buddha state for the next 8 to 10 weeks. And that was my way. And I understood all that other stuff that I used to see was part of this. But, yeah, it was pretty abrupt. And then I spent the next 20 years learning and learning and learning and transforming and everything. So, yeah, that was my wake-up experience.
Wow.
Wow.
Merlin woke you up.
Yeah.
20 years ago, yeah, Merlin just came straight in, and it was like he may as well have been there. I mean, it was full on colour. He was he was there. That's all there was to
it. I've been doing so I found a book about Merlin written by I think his name is Michael Greer or something Greer, and he is all about druidry and like the history of Merlin and like all different kinds of stuff, like Celtic sort of things. And so I was reading a book about Merlin, and I learnt so much about the history of Merlin and the actual truth behind Merlin, because I grew up thinking that it was just a legend and we didn't really know if Merlin existed or not. But like what I found out through reading these books is that no, he's like actually factually a person. Like there was a real Merlin, and there's so many mysteries behind it. Like some people even believe, because there's some evidence to show that a lot of the Celtics and the Druids actually worshipped Merlin as a god, but we don't really can say for fact because of how much the culture has died and changed and been destroyed. So yeah, it's just Merlin is an incredible being. Like I don't know, I just whenever I talk about him, wherever I feel his energy, it's just like, yeah, he's an incredible energy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So how are you after that, Morgan? Like having Merlin come to you like that.
Yeah.
It must have been so overwhelming for you.
No, I went into a state of bliss and stayed there. Like people were coming up, can I touch them? And I was able to tell all their future. I mean, it was surreal. I wasn't disturbed at all. I was more disturbed when that bliss state stopped, because I just stayed in that for probably closer to 8 weeks. When it stopped, that's when everything really, the shit started hitting the fan. I started vomiting up rocks every night for about 3 months first up. And then they came down to pebbles, and I was vomiting up pebbles every night, energetically, of course. and then stones and then sand, and that was that was okay. We showed you where we want you to get to later on. I know now, 21, 25, 30 years later or whatever. Now you've got to do all the work. And he stayed with me. And this other, I thought it was his wife, this old, she said she was called the Soul Mother. She had long, wild, white, curly hair. And Merlin and her came in and started really teaching me everything from there. But that was the beginning, the real beginning of my healing journey, taking me out of, that false, distorted concept of earth or living and into the reality.
Yeah.
Wow. And do you see him still?
Just before Todd and I got married, he came into the room and he stepped out of the back of me and he said to Todd, and we didn't know at this point that we were getting married, like 2 weeks later, and he said to Todd, okay, I'm giving her to you now. And we didn't see him, like I didn't see him for a couple of years. But now if there's really big ceremonies coming in or stuff like that, he comes into our circles a lot. He shows up a lot more now. Yeah.
Wow. And do you think that you having that pain in your coccyx was to force you to that lady, like to make you get into a position where you could open yourself up to it?
Yeah, well, I was going to go and risk seeing some crazy person and go and try this woo-woo stuff, not realising how woo-woo I'd been myself my whole life. I just thought everyone could do that stuff. But, yes, absolutely, well, no, you know what? It didn't heal the coccyx. I still had coccyx pain after that. So he came in, he didn't heal the coccyx, but he taught me during the next year how to heal it myself, which I'd spent thousands of dollars. I'd had it most of my life. Soul Mother and Merlin taught me how to heal it myself.
Wow. The fact that you were so corporate really speaks to me, because I had a stint in my life as a corporate person myself. Like I flew for Qantas for 20 something years. So very, like, I wore a uniform every day, and I raised up through the ranks to manager, and it was, I mean, flying is a lifestyle. It really is a lifestyle. It was part of who I was. So when I stopped flying, it was a huge change for me. And as I've told Todd and in other videos, my awakening started after my dad died. So kind of like that shock to the system sent me on a trajectory into this realm that I'm in now, which I'm so grateful for. But massive change, massive U-turn in my life. Like,
absolutely.
If somebody had said to me back then, this is where I'd end up, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Oh, Mum was the most the most opposite of woo-woo ever. And I actually scared her with the amount of woo-woo that I was. Like, there was times where
I wasn't scared.
No.
I was just like, what's going on here?
maybe a little bit worried for my well-being. At the time, and it's so funny how that worked out, because I was awake as a child, like how you were saying. I was kind of the most crazy one out of the family, I'd say, in terms of spiritualness.
Well, openness. I would say she was open.
Yeah. And I did believe in a lot of conspiracies, but I didn't fully allow myself to wake up until Mum woke up, because it was like, if Mum is believing this stuff, then like it's real. Because
and I'm so grateful for that too, though, because Spence was like, what are you talking about? Like, it shocked him too. And Juliet was like, oh, wow. And everybody got on board with it. Like, because it happened. I feel like life conspired to bring me to that point. That's how it feels to me, because of the way it happened. And then I was like mind blown. And I took that stuff that came out of my brain to Juliet and to Spence, and they were mind blown as well. But they didn't kind of look at me and go, you're crazy. Like, they actually listened, and it hit home for them too. Like, it hit them the way it hit me. And then that led them on their own journeys to awakening.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that because we've all been pretty much on the same page since then.
Yeah, there's
and I
nothing
do
like
feel
it.
like Juliet prepared us a little bit with her questions.
Yeah.
And
I was about to say, there's nothing like a conscious child coming into the family to force you to grow up and wake up.
Yeah.
And you have to. And I love how, you know, she couldn't fully be there until she knew that she had your support there to support her through all that as well. So you had to catch up very, very quickly in order for Julie to really come out.
Yeah, and I did.
Yeah.
It was like almost overnight it happened. Everything up until that point, it was just me holding back. That's all it was. It was just like that little spark that had to click, like the light switch had to go on inside me, because all the preparation had been laid, all the road had been laid till that point. And then when I had that download at the ocean and it opened, it was like I was kind of say it was like all my cells opened up like this. The information came in and then my cells closed up and I took it on. That's how it felt to me. It was like a flower opening and it all came in, and then I took it in and it was like, okay, that sits right in me. That feels correct. And but it was all the years up until that point of being curious, of Juliet, of things people said to me, my dad dying and all of that stuff that all worked together to make that moment happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Juliet, did you know, did you have awareness around what was going on, like that you were waiting for your mum?
Looking back, definitely, like maybe not during the time, but I was in a place, like I was quite lost during that time. I just left high school. I'd just gone through some like pretty major traumas, high school being one of them. And me and mum have always been close. And so I think I was just really fragile isn't the right word, but I will
sensitive.
I was just really sensitive at that time after coming out of all those traumas and feeling kind of lost in myself because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I was going to be in life, who I was going to be. And so me being able to look at mum and see that she's now believing all the stuff that I already did believe, just wouldn't allow myself to admit that I believed. That's why I'm where I am today, is because I was just too sensitive in that time to go off on my own and believe it and be awakened if my family wasn't going to, particularly my mum. Yeah, it just wasn't going to happen. So,
well, maybe not at that time.
Not at that time. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Very cool. I love how it works.
So, I also did a bit of digging and looked at your website. I love your website, by the way. It's amazing. And that's why I've actually titled this live 0 Point with Morgan Lee, because 0 Point is such a beautiful topic to dive into and talk about. So my question for you is, how did you discover 0 Point and these, I think it's 6 steps, like these 6 steps that you share in your courses and stuff? I would just like to know how you came to find all that out.
Soul Mother taught me, not really, sort of, but sort of. Like this, the Merlin and Soul Mother had been talking to me about the importance of first finding those programs that are, working against each other, and then collapsing them. They didn't give me the instructions initially. It happened over like probably about 6 or 12 months. They give me a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until it's like, oh, okay, I've grasped it now. And once I grasped it, then I could just develop the rest of it, if that makes sense. They would say to me, you know that when the sperm and the egg came together, that's when you picked up the bulk of your programs, and you need to find a way to collapse those programs because they're limiting your life and what you want for yourself here. Start off by writing down father or mother, and write a list of all the negative attributes of each parent. And then when you find the negative attributes, write in the polar opposites opposite them. So for me, I did my mother, and the first word, sorry, Margot, the first word I wrote down was controlling. And my polar opposite was for controlling was submissive or subservient. So when I looked at my relationships, and I had a boyfriend for a few years, and then I had a husband. That controlling was with the husband and with the other boyfriend, and in most of my life relationships. And when I had my kids, I would flip. Sometimes I was controlling with them, sometimes they were controlling back, and I would automatically go into subservience when that controlling behaviour came near me. So once I neutralised them and they were no longer active, I didn't have to keep creating lessons or more experiences of that.
Yeah, right.
That's so true.
So it's neutralizing. Basically, you're neutralizing those negative programs that are controlling you.
And you neutralize them by owning both polarities. So I had to own the controlling. Oh, yes, I can see when I'm controlling with my daughter here or my son there or in this situation or whatever. And I can also, if I wasn't in this spectrum of it, I'd be over in this automatic, unconscious, subservient or submissive spectrum of it. When I owned both of them completely, when I owned them both as my own and recognized them both as my own and neutralized them, then they weren't active anymore. And I wasn't pulling in new experiences, new people externally to give me more lessons of controlling.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do that?
I just said it took about, how long did it take me personally to do it? Probably close to 12 months. And it still goes on. I started to feel a bit nervous before I came on here. So I quickly zero-pointed both of you. So I wouldn't feel, anything, extreme. I'd just be in a neutral place with you both. But yeah, probably 12 months. And the people that do it, it's taking them, between 9 and 12 months. I remember when I first met Todd, he did the first step. He did the whole of step 1 in 4 weeks, but he was working up in another room for 8 to 10 hours a day to neutralize most of, certainly not all of, but most of those childhood unconscious programs that we have running.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is profound stuff.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's
Because
life-changing.
I think
Sorry.
Yeah, because those things that we hand down to our children and our parents hand down to us are heavy because they're right deep in your brain, like in the subconscious body. They're in there.
And where, like, our children come in with it in their DNA because of us, but then we reiterate it to them all day, every day anyway. And because it's now within their DNA and it's active in their field, their experiences at school, at art classes, at sports classes, with friends, their experiences start copying outwards, through every. And you know what I love? So I heard a story about a lady the other day who's in an abusive relationship, and the daughter's, had a baby, and now that person's being abusive. The father is doing overreaction because he doesn't like, another man treating his daughter like he treated his wife. So there's an opportunity for him to now look at his own behaviour. And then the mother can also go, I need to make some changes here because my daughter, and we don't react very much for ourselves, but when we see something happen to our children will play out our wounds. So if we see our children go through something, we shouldn't worry about them. We should lock ourselves in a room for whatever it takes and clear the programs in us, because as I cleared my DNA, I saw both of my kids receiving aspects of that as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So it radiates out. The healing that you do to yourself radiates to your family through your DNA.
Yeah, through every aspect of your life. It's me taking 100% responsibility for my field, the programs within my field.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's so deep, like the connection to our physical ancestors in this body is so deep. Like I heard something about your eggs coming from your grandmother. Like it actually goes back 2 generations or something. And So you were carried in your grandmother's womb, and then were also carried in your mum's womb or something, and then you came out. I don't. I know it sounds complicated, but something like that. But it just shows like
because your grandmother carries your mother from birth.
Yeah, and when she's formed as a baby, you as an egg are in there, so you're in her womb. So it's just
So in your fallopian tubes, the eggs are containing the makeup and the DNA of your great granddaughter. Your grand.
Oh.
So that brings me to this question then. How does it work for adopted people? Because I'm adopted, but I was raised, I was in my grandmother's DNA. Like I have my mother's DNA, but I was adopted. So I was raised by people that were not my DNA. So does that make an influence?
Yes and no. I didn't know. I didn't know my father. I never ever knew him. I found out at 13 or 14 that the man I thought was my father wasn't. What I found fascinating when I did my list, so I did my mother first, and then I did my father, who I actually ended up meeting a couple of times, and I did my stepfather, and I couldn't believe, like, if you knew your biological, the programs are almost identical. You will pick a adoptive family who are going to be carrying the same programs as your biological family.
Yeah, right.
But now you've got a massive overlay of abandonment and rejection and everything on top of all of that as well.
Yeah.
So if you knew and if you didn't know your biological parents, you can pretty much trust that they were going to have the same programs that you've written on these adoptive parents anyway.
Yeah, right. Because I've met my birth mother a few times, but I've never had contact with my birth father at all. I don't know him at all. I don't even know if he's still in Australia. All I know was that he was Greek, and that was it.
Well, guaranteed your father would have had programs that are on your mother's list and your father's list.
Yeah,
and
that's so interesting.
And met them are actually seeing this happen. I did too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, awesome.
Wow. So 0 point really correlates with your ancestors and the programs, the ancestral programs that you hold. I didn't even think that they would have anything to do with one another.
You're clearing them. You're clearing them out. That's what this work does.
My mother was very neglectful of her children. My grandmother was very smothering. My great-grandmother was neglectful. And I was very smothering with my daughter, not my son. I woke up by the time I had my son. But just that one program, a smothering parent is going to create a neglectful, very likely a neglectful daughter. It flips. It flips. But really, both of them are there. If I, to clear that myself, I had to look, well, when am I neglectful? Am I neglectful? Well, not to my children, but I was to myself.
Yeah.
So it was still there. So by owning the neglectful and smothering, I neutralized it. I didn't need to unconsciously be either anymore.
Yeah, right. So can you give us a little bit of an insight into the process of owning that?
Oh, I already did. So you would write down father or mother, whoever you want to do first. You would write down all of their negative attributes.
But how do you own it? How do you own, because that sounds to me like that's a huge thing to say, I own that about myself. Like not a lot of people would be able to do that. You have to admit your mistakes and you have to see them and say, I did that.
Yeah, it's actually easier than you think. Let's say you put down that your mother was bossy. No, that's like controlling, isn't it? I just make up a word. Shy. Let's pretend that you put down she was shy. Your polar opposite then might be outgoing. So then you look at yourself and you say, am I outgoing or shy? And you might say, well, I'm more outgoing. Can I be shy? Yes, that's there as well. So when we look at them just as words and we don't take them personally and we go, this is just a program. Oh, my God, I didn't know. This wasn't even mine. I came in and took it on. So I'd have an opportunity at some point to neutralize it. So there's first step, I've actually I can't go more without giving the whole thing away. I can't.
Yeah, I get it. No, that's really clear. That's really clear. That's answered my question, that it's not as hard as you think, and that it's about just recognizing that that is there and saying, yes, I can be shy. Yes, I can be outgoing.
Yes, but then you take this a step further and you might write down, okay, let me look at shy. I wonder how that made me feel as a child. And you might write down as well, sad, annoyed, alone. Well, how did being shy make me feel as a teenager? And again, you're going to come up, or it made me angry because I blamed my mother, or, you know, you're going to actually go and find the emotions attached to each one of the programs as well. So not only are you clearing in here, the unconscious memory, but you're also clearing your cellular of what's been stuck there unconsciously as well. Yeah. So you're taking full responsibility for the program and all of the stuck and repressed emotions and feelings that you created throughout your life as well.
Wow. And how does this process relate to somebody that has like ADHD or autism? Have you had experience with people that have got those programs running in them?
And that's just a program themselves. So by step 3, what I found, like I was so acutely, I was paralyzed in shyness, in introvertness, in being a hermit. And I got so bad I couldn't even leave the house. And I think I'd had about 3 or 4 years, and I would force myself to go to the supermarket maybe once a month or whatever. If I had to go to my kids' school events, I'd have a couple of kilos of milk. I was acutely shy, agoraphobic, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I wrote down at the top of the page, like that, agoraphobia. Is that what it's called? One's close to spine.
Agoraphobia, I think. Yeah.
Agoraphobia.
Yeah.
I wrote down a list, and then I wrote down everything. What I found as I was doing the process, that I became less and less. And actually, that's the truth is, by the time I finished step 1, it was gone. This is the truth. I walked around to the main road. I walked into Flight Centre and I booked myself a trip to Rome by myself for 4 weeks. And I was having dinner, you know, in strangers' houses every night. I was hanging out, you know, with complete strangers all day, every day. I mean, I really, really lived it up. And I thought I was fixed. And I got back and my higher self says, no, we need to do step 2 now. And then step 3, like, so if I had ADHD, I would find that most of those symptoms are going to lessen, because there is no such thing as these mental imbalances. It's just energy out of balance. It's your programs out of balance. And then the doctors or psychiatrists have realised, oh, they're coming in patterns. Let's call this one this, and that one's bipolar there, and that one's ADHD, and that one's depression. When you go through this process and you clear all your programs yourself, you'll find that lessens. And if it was still there, in step 3, you'd write down ADHD, and then you'd list, what do I feel about it? What are all my thoughts? What are my beliefs? And actually clear it yourself, if that makes sense. Clear the actual label that somebody else is giving you that you believed in.
Yes, that's so true. A label that somebody else has given you that you believed in.
Yeah. And then what happens? Then what happens is this ADHD is getting so big now. There's a morphic field of it that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And because we've hooked into it, we'll automatically be feeding, receiving, and aligning with all the programs of ADHD in there. So if anything, our conditions or our ADHD or whatever is going to get worse before it gets better, because we've aligned with the whole energetic grid of it.
Yeah, and made it huge and powerful.
And let other programs that we didn't have now become part of our own consciousness.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think then is a good time to ask, so how did you meet Todd, and like, how was that experience? You know, I think based on what I've read on your website, you had a previous relationship and you came out of it kind of not believing that the kind of relationship you wanted even existed. And then you went from that belief to this beautiful, sacred balanced relationship with Todd. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, Todd stalked me for 6 months. I think he's told you guys this. He stalked me. He found me on Facebook. He found that photo because I didn't have very many photos up there. The photo that you put up from like 8 years ago. He found that photo. He read my bio. He says he didn't understand what it meant, but he knew he was. So he watched me for 6 months. And then he started, doing a few lives and his rap stuff that he does and everything. So there'd be something there for me to look at. Then he worked up the courage to send me a message and he asked me if I'd join Sology. And I just ignored all of that sort of stuff. I'm like, weirdo, put it away.
Weirdo.
I did. I thought weirdo. I went to the page and I'm like, weirdo. It's had a bit of a giggle on my heart. I don't think so. No. But then a few days later, I don't know, he just came into my thoughts again. I think it was only a week or two before that. It wasn't that I didn't want a relationship so much. It was more that I didn't need one anymore. I'd rather be by myself than put up with all that other hoo-ha, which was all my own programs coming in at me, unconscious programs. So I don't know, something, and I looked at him again, I watched him again, I had a bit of a giggle and, all his rapping and everything. And I went, why not? So I messaged him to say, yes, okay, I'll join your Sology. Unbeknownst to me, he was on a heap in the floor in a really bad state. And I'd also been practicing this Heros Gamos for 2 or 3 years before that. So I thought, here we go, here's another client. This man's in trouble. So we merged, and I thought it was just going to be for 2 weeks. And, he sort of rang the next day and insisted on speaking to me, which I'd never done before, like with these strange men from around the world. And he didn't go away after 2 weeks.
Yeah, right. Wow.
He didn't go away after 2 weeks. He just hung on.
Morgan, how could he?
Just stay.
How could he let you go?
He couldn't let you go, Morgan.
Apparently.
Oh, so that I love this segue now is I'd love to talk to you about sacred sexuality and your work doing that and Heros Gamos and all of that stuff. Can you introduce us into that world?
Heros Gamos. Heros Gamos is, I'm going to try to brief down my first experience. I used to have clients at home. I used to live really well. I had a beautiful big 5-bedroom house in Adelaide, and I had my own office and healing room and everything. And people would come in and have sessions with me. And this man rang up and he said, he was 36 or 37 or something. He said, I need help. I'm having sex like 15, 20 times a day with women from 16 through to 96. I can hardly get my job done. I'm married with 3 daughters. I don't know how to fix this. At the time, I was still in my marriage, and I'm gone. My husband wasn't interested in sex with me. So I wasn't having any sex. I'm like, okay. So he came, and he was only there for about 5 or 10 minutes, and this automatic merging happened. It was automatic. It just happened. I felt him come into my body. I felt part of me leave and, become one with his. And so, it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. I'd never felt anything like it before. And he left, and I spent the next 2 weeks, I couldn't even walk to the shops without having an orgasm. I'd walk along the beach, I'd have to lay down and wait for it to pass, and I was having like 20 orgasms a day, not even doing anything. My hair, and it'd start and I'd have to find a seat to sit down or pull over to the side of the road. It was like I was having the absolute time of my life.
You got to teach us how to do that, Morgan.
Yeah, I do teach people how to do that. And so for that 2 weeks, there were certain times you just had to connect. I'd go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and think, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. And at 11:01, I had to run out and I'd go to my computer and he was there. Are you free? Are you free? Like, yeah, right. We had to connect. And so we started moving that soul mother, and Merlin were giving me instruction. This isn't just about sex. Move these up through the chakras. And so at the end of that 2 weeks, it just stopped. That man knew everything that I'd learned over the last 10 years. He knew everything
Wow.
that I knew. So the merging shares data, it shares frequency, it shares information. And especially if that person's already got it inactive in their DNA and you merge with someone and it's active, it's just going to light everything up. So from there, I understood, I know how this works. You can feel your energy going out to a center space. You can feel theirs coming in to join. And then the two higher selves, it starts off slow. It's almost like dipping your toe in the water. You can see the two energies going, oh, yeah, that's not too bad. Let's go a bit closer, a bit closer. And they almost start having a dance. And then his blue and her pink merge and become one. And then you know that it's done. But if you've brought that to the throat chakra, and you've allowed that to happen in the throat chakra area, like when Todd and I did the throat chakra, I had a big talk I had to do, and I was too scared to do it. I just thought, I'm just going to fail this assignment. But I merged with him 2 days beforehand and got up and just did it, in front of the class. And I started writing poetry, which I'd never done in my life. So the merging, the allowance of our light bodies or our higher selves becoming one is sharing, in that space of oneness, everybody expands.
Wow. That kind of makes me a bit scared. I feel a bit nervous about merging myself with somebody like that I don't know. Yeah, that's triggering a little bit of fear in me.
Really?
Yeah.
For me, I know that I recognize that I've done that with this girl Lana, who is on Soulology as well as on the Witch Bitch podcast. We've really connected with each other, and after talking with her on the live on the podcast and also privately in person, I feel like there was definitely a merging happening there, because she's very do it, like kind of overactive, like just let's get everything done. And it's really beautiful to witness, but I'm an overthinker and I want to overanalyze everything before I do it. And so after talking to her, I'm no longer.
Your mum said that makes me nervous. You got that from your mum. I want to sit back and take everything slowly, get everything right, and then I might try it. That's your mum's program.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Sorry about that, Juliet.
Yeah, so
you can let go of it now if you want.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, so after talking to her, I was just doing shit all the time. Like I started building this website. I was what have I done? I've done posting like new content on my social media.
You were the train on the rails, baby.
Yeah, and I still am. Like it's still stuck with me. Like I'm just doing everything all the time. Like if I want to do something, I go and do it. And before it wasn't so easy for me to do that. And I feel like there has been some trend, like some of that light body merging. Yeah. Because she came to me and was talking about how inspired she is after talking to me as well. So it's like, yeah, there's definitely some merging going on there.
There's some merging going on, and we do that all day, every day with people. But there's something about saying, let's do this consciously. Let's really sit together in silence. And well, it doesn't have to be in silence. You'll find that you'll start having the same experiences. Like she might say to you, oh my God, I can feel this happening in my throat chakra. And you'll say, oh yes, I can feel something as well. It's the consciousness that is anchoring and embodying this. But yeah, clearly you are already doing it, Juliet.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And what you were saying before as well about the doing that, writing down the attributes to your mom, and then also the opposite and owning both. It's kind of weird that you said that, because our previous guest, Mandy Horton, was actually saying stuff very, very, very similar to what you were talking about, how
clearing programs.
Yeah, clearing programs, because a lot of the time when your dad is holding, like for me, when my dad is holding a program, I'm usually doing the opposite. So like extra opposite, which is exactly what you were saying. So it's like real synchronicity there. I'm feeling
the universe is telling us.
Yeah, the universe is telling us to, and me specific, like, because I'm in my own body, telling me to look at the programs of my parents and to.
And I invite you to.
Yeah.
That makes me excited. I think that's great.
Yeah.
If you did that and cleared them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'll definitely do it. Before I was just like thinking, oh yeah, that's amazing. But now that it's happened twice in a row, it's like, okay, I'm looking now. I'm opening myself to really doing it.
Yeah. And I think that's like, for me as her mum, if she clears them out, it helps me. It motivates me too. And it brings joy to me to know that she's making that escape, if you know what I mean, like, and becoming more of who she is, because that's what I want for you and for Bryn, my kids. I want them to have more of themselves and not be trapped in the cycles of my DNA and their DNA. That's what I want for them.
Yeah. And it's really strange observing these programs, because a lot of them, as you were saying, Morgan, are coming from that point where the sperm and the egg come together, and a lot of the programs come in there. So, but I never remember as a child holding any programs, because for me, when I was a kid, and observing kids now, I think that the stuff has changed in the world, but I remember being so present in every moment as a kid, up until I was pretty, like, maybe 12.
Right.
So like,
do you remember making the decision to not be present?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember making a choice, but I remember when it stopped.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I was always in the present, and I never really remember holding too many programs or ever really limiting myself as a kid. But the second I hit high school, the second I hit becoming a teenager and changes in my mindset and everything, it was like, now I'm owning all the programs that from that point. Like, now I'm owning all the programs. It was like, if I'm going to be in this world and be fit in, if I'm going to fit in, then I'm going to have to hold all these programs, because
like a survival, like almost like a survival decision.
I didn't see them as programs. I just saw them as, oh, that's the way people are. So let's do that then.
Yeah. And Morgan, I remember like seeing a difference in her. Like, it was gradual. It wasn't like one day she was one thing and one next day she was something else. But I remember kind of noticing, okay, she's becoming more self-conscious and a little bit shyer and not as much herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was never shy.
No.
I never got nervous about anything.
No, you were gung-ho.
Yeah. And then, like, all of a sudden I'm a bit more shy. I'm a bit more of an half introvert, half extrovert now. And I was never like that. I was, oh my God, looking back, I was like a fearless child when it came to speaking to people and being myself. So yeah, but slowly, as I'm grateful for the experience of accepting the programs, because it's creating ascension in my life, really. And I'm learning a lot. I'm learning so much. But yeah, it took me a long time to accept the fact that I opened myself to the programs.
I think you were grieving.
Oh, I was. I was really hating on myself for, like, I was just like, why on earth would you do this? Why on earth would you let go of who I was and become this person that I didn't recognize anymore? But now I'm grateful. Finally. I'm grateful for it. And I'm working through it.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just crazy hearing all the synchronicities and what you're talking about. And I mean, I'm sure you get that a lot. It's just amazing to you.
From the moment we arrive, we spend those first 13 years collecting the programs, just being in fun. And then something happens we realise I don't actually like very much what I've created here. They're my mum's programs, my dad's programs or whatever. And there's so many of the nearly, I think, every single Indigenous community around the world, including some other communities like the Jewish or whatever, make a point of letting go of their children at 13
Yeah.
and giving their children free range for the children to play with these programs. Do I actually want to be the same as over there? Or do I want this space now, my teenage years, to start developing my own programs? That was the time that we actually had the freedom to do that. But we haven't been. We've overparented. You look at the Italian mothers, you know, they've still got their 56-year-old sons coming over for dinner every Friday night. And, you know, paying for their groceries and stuff like that, because it's so deeply ingrained, this vampirism, this entanglement that we do, we haven't understood, let the birds leave the nest. So, yeah, your first 13 years is you think you're just having fun. You don't know that you're being brainwashed, not just by your DNA, and through your teenage years, you can become very angry or depressed because you're starting to understand these programs do not make me feel good. I've got constant internal conflict. I'm losing my confidence. I don't have that fun and joy from my childhood anymore, and I don't like who I'm becoming. But we've been taught our parents on pedestals and see them as Mother God and Father Goddess, and our parents don't let us say, I don't like that you're making me do my homework. I don't want to do that. Because we've been so brainwashed, not just by our own DNA and our parents, but now the systems and the government and our schools and our aunties and uncles. Everyone is teaching us to be small. And we look at our teenagers now and young adults and wonder why there's so much either distraction and addiction or depression or so-called mental imbalances or whatever. No one ever let them come here and be them.
Yeah, so true. So true. I remember having an argument with my mum when I was about 11 or 12 because I wanted to start picking out my own clothes because I really didn't like my wardrobe at all. I didn't like the clothes that were in my wardrobe. They were really daggy. And I was the eldest girl. My brother is 8 years older than me, and I've got a sister who's 2 years younger. So I was like those cardboard cutouts where you put the paper dresses on with the little tabs. I was that for my mum.
Yes.
And, she enjoyed picking out my clothes and dressing me and doing my hair. And it came to a point where I was like, this is ridiculous. I want to do this for myself now. I have to learn. I had it inside me. I knew innately inside me that I needed to have that independence.
Yeah.
And with my mum, there was never any independence without a fight. Yeah, I had to fight for everything that I wanted.
Yeah.
With my dad, I could have a conversation with him. I could explain to him my point of view and where I was coming from. I was quite articulate as a child, so I was able to do that. And he would go, okay, yeah, you can describe it, you can explain it, then you're ready.
Yeah.
Whereas with my mum, it was never about that. It was always about how it was going to affect her. And yeah, I just remember this massive argument with her over me picking out my own clothes and how hurt she was that I wasn't appreciating this effort that she was putting in to dressing me.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the rest of my life, like I'll never forget that. And it was almost like that was the initiation that I'd created in my own family for moving away from her controlling ways.
Yeah.
Because after that, she kind of backed off.
Yeah.
She backed off. She could see that I was growing up and that I needed to make those decisions for myself.
Yeah.
And
so you forced her to grow up.
Yeah, but she carried.
She was a stubborn woman.
Yeah, she was. And she carried that hurt for a long time and held it against me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was because I was such a headstrong person, you know, she didn't like it.
Yeah.
She did not like that at all.
Mm.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Nope, she didn't.
And I think that's helped, like the way I was, as you were saying, the way I was raised by her taught me that children having autonomy and having the ability to make decisions for themselves, and being, you know, thinking I can make this happen in my life, you know, that creative energy, allowing them to make mistakes, allowing them to have that autonomy, and having those ideas for themselves creates more creativity in their life,
Absolutely.
which
And
is
yet
what I
here we
found.
are, all being brainwashed into sending our children into these jails. They have to wear school uniforms. They're not allowed to talk in class. They have to parrot learn everything. I mean, they're not. So it doesn't seem to matter what we're doing here as a parent. Okay, I'm going to do a bit more of that. We're sending them for the bulk of their day into institutions that are running as the big parents, you know, big father, mother, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true. And it kind of demotes the parents' power over the decisions they make with their children. Like the family unit is diluted down because you're sending them into a school
That's
that
right.
has a bigger authority or a
The government
perceived bigger authority.
systems are disempowering us as parents to make valuable choices, empowering choices for our children, which is actually letting them make the choices. I went to my son's school because every time he got a C, you were called in. So we went in and he sat just a bit there, and the math teacher said, you know, he needs to do more homework. And I turned around and said to my son, how do you feel about the grade that you got? And he said, I'm happy. I'm like, there you go. And the man started crying. And he said, oh, my God, I wish my mum was like that. And I said, my job is to support him. And I never got called in again. They understood that I wasn't supporting them to brainwash my child into doing so much more than is necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of the day, that C on his paper is another person's opinion about something that they've taught him that he's just regurgitating back to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So really, they're giving the C to themselves.
Yeah. And not only in schools, not only are you being put into an institute with all these teachers with their own programs and the schools themselves with their own demonic programs, but you're also being sent into an environment with a whole bunch of other kids your own age that have held onto different programs of all sorts from their own parents, from their own lives. And because we're all teenagers, and kids, we can't control really how we project. We don't recognize that until we've matured.
So they're doing it to each
it's like
other.
projection of this belief, projection of that belief, and then also going into the classroom and the teacher yelling at you. Like I remember, oh my God, I had this math teacher. Oh, his name. Oh, actually,
Leave
I won't.
the
No, I
name
won't.
out
I
of
won't. I
it.
won't. I'm tempted, but I won't. So he was a bastard. And there was one time in class where it had been a few weeks since he had checked homework, and he was doing it. I know he was doing it as an experiment to the class because he had always previously checked every single week, and it was just randomly that these like 3 weeks he didn't check homework. So I know now, looking back, he was just doing it as a test. Like anyway, so
you really don't like this guy.
So it came to the third week, and he said, "Okay, homework books out, everyone." And everyone was like silent because no one did it, obviously, except for like 2 people. And
the goody two shoes in the class.
Me, I actually didn't. Surprisingly, I was very much a goody two shoes in high school, but yeah. So he was like, "Why didn't you guys do your homework?" And he asked us, "What could I do to help you do your homework? Like, what can I do?" And I was like, sitting at my table and being like, "Oh, he's asking us? That's awesome!" And then I put my hand up and I said, "Give us more visual, hands-on, like learning. Teach us in a different way because it's." really hard to absorb information when it's just on
Book
a text.
learning.
Yeah, book learning the same stuff over and over again. Make it more interactive and more visual. And he looked me in the eyes, interrupted me through my sentence, and said, "I don't believe in that. Next person." In the middle of the class, like in front of the whole class. So you're going into a classroom with the teacher and then all the kids around you, because the kids were laughing at me as well. So then I'm getting projected on from like all the different kids laughing at me. So yeah, it's just like,
because you
didn't
follow their programs. That's why Juliet was a free spirit. She didn't fit in to that school cutout, you know, because she had a mind of her own and she would express it with genuine feeling.
Yeah.
And teenagers is very, very difficult. Like that's quite, you don't see it because that's how you are as a person.
Yeah.
But for teenagers to express themselves genuinely from their heart, it's a very difficult thing because they're squashed a lot of the time by their parents. No, that's not how we do it. We do it like this and we do it like that. Like the maths teacher said to you, I don't believe in that. You're a child. You will listen to me, you know, that kind of thing. And we weren't like that with you.
No.
Growing up. Like Spence and I didn't raise her that way.
Yeah.
So
you didn't push any belief on me at all.
No. No, like everything was open for discussion. You know, it was never, it was always going to be Juliet's choice, even though we did send you to a Catholic school. If she had questions, she would come home and we would talk about that.
And if I wanted to leave, you would have let me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, that's why she would get that pushback, because she wasn't in the frame.
Yeah.
And probably just entering the space, you know, without all the programs that come with it, would have been hurting her energetically from the moment she arrived.
100%. And I didn't know it, and she didn't realize it until she was out of that container. There was no more container. We allowed her to leave school early, and there was no more container. And then she was free to be who she wanted to be, and she was lost because that container was gone. And she was like, I don't know who I am or what I need to be now because I'm free.
Yeah.
It's like her butterfly wings were still unfolding and drying, and she didn't know how to use them yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like that. It was like having wings and not being able to, not knowing how to fly.
Yeah, it's like, what are these things? I don't know what they are. I'm not used to it.
Yeah. It was an interesting time. It was, school really was like, I visualize it as kind of a washing machine, just like every day being tumbled and tumbled. And by the time I came out, I didn't know which way was up. I didn't know which way was down. I didn't know what the floor was, what was the ceiling, and just being disoriented from life, like completely disoriented from my path too, like off my bearing, like my compass was no longer pointing to my north, to my center point. It was just like, I don't even know where I am. And
but it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that in primary school, was it?
No,
it was only high school.
Primary school was completely fine. It was just high school. And when I left, I was like, well, let's go into TAFE, because I was still holding on to the programs that I need to be learning. I need to be doing something. I need to be taught
in a classroom.
And I went into a interior design course at TAFE, and I don't even know why I chose that of all things, because I had never wanted to be an interior designer. I think it was because I wanted to build tiny homes.
Yeah, that's right.
And
yeah, that's right.
But the interior design part is like the least important part of of building tiny homes. So yeah, it was just interesting. It was so interesting observing the programs that were coming off of me and leaving, but also I was still like acting in them. It's almost like carrying, you know, when you're like using a dumbbell or some sort of weight, and then you let go and it feels like
there's still something,
tension in your muscles. you're still going like this for some reason. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, it's programming. So, when we start listing our programs, fine, and clearing them, they don't have to have that muscle memory there anymore. They just drop away.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think your experience was in high school, Morgan? What was high school like for you?
I don't know if I should talk about that. I probably spent, I was okay at school, in primary school, and once I hit high school, by my second year of high school, I learned my mother's signature to perfection. And I probably went to school for about 3 or 4 hours a week. I used to get up, put my school uniform on, sneak around the back, sit in the back shed and just wait there. The days that I did go to school, I'd be beaten up like regularly, or the boys wouldn't leave. I mean, it was horrifying for me. School was absolutely torturous and horrifying. So I kept going. I persisted till, halfway through year 12, and then I just gave up. But I probably spent about 75% of my high school time sitting in a corner in the back shed hiding till school time was, till it was time to come home. I hated school.
Wow, that must have been so difficult for you.
Yeah.
No,
so did your parents, they never knew that you were doing that?
No. But my mum was able to write exactly like my mother, and I would just take a note every week, a different note, like every week. Morgan's had the flu this week. Morgan had diarrhea all week. Morgan, it was just, and the teachers just they just accepted it. I don't know, they all believed it. I'm not sure, but I completely got away with it.
Wow.
But
did you ever tell your parents that you were doing it?
No, my mother was very rarely there. I didn't have a father there at the time, and she was very rarely there anyway, so she wouldn't have even known. But I think it was a real gift for me not to go into so much of that incarceration type energy. It was dangerous. It was controlling. It was, I spent most of my childhood and teenage years dissociating. So sitting in a class, I couldn't stay with anything or anyone anyway, unless it was something I liked, like English or art, sports. But everything else, I'd go to school for those classes. And then I'd come up, Morgan's got an appointment with the dentist. I have to leave now. I go to school for the 2 classes that I liked.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
I wish I was brave enough to do something like that. I was such a goody two-shoes at school. I really was. I was too scared to do anything bad.
I was too. I didn't do anything bad. I just didn't want to attend all the rubbish. But that's probably
but if I didn't go, my mum would have belted me.
Yeah, she would have found out.
Yeah, she would have belted me.
Yeah.
Well, my mum wasn't there to know, really.
Yeah, right.
I got away with it. And I look back and think, wow, what a gift that I didn't force myself to do that, and I didn't stay in that.
Yeah.
You were your best friend in that moment. You were protecting yourself. It's amazing that you were doing that. That's great.
Yeah, really, really is. Yeah. That's like pretty honorable thing to do, because I know that would have been, for me, that would have been I would be too scared to do it. Be too scared to
go against the norm.
Go to hide in the shed and lie. I mean, I never would have felt like I needed to lie, but yeah.
No, you wouldn't. If you'd come to me and said, "Mum, I can't go to school anymore," like we would have dealt with that.
Yeah.
And we would have had it out. Maybe that's why you were scared, because you didn't, because that's how we are. Like we would ask what's going on and it would come out, and then would be a big discussion, and it would be it would be like uncovering where it's coming from and all of that.
Yeah, I didn't realize, being as a young person, that I can say I don't want to talk about it. It's just that's what, like, I just don't want to. Like, I didn't really think that.
Yeah, right.
One word was an answer. Like, I just wanted. I
like
didn't
that.
Want to
No was a complete sentence.
Yeah. I always thought that if I didn't want to do something, I'd have to explain it to.
Yeah, probably because we would have asked for one. We would have wanted to know why.
Yeah. So big podcast today. Yeah, big one. A lot of wisdom and magic from all of us. But Morgan, seriously, you're
You're an
magical.
activator.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that was my schooling. The last 21 years has been my schooling to understand, what's really going on, not what I was being brainwashed to, but like what's really happening. What should we really be doing? So, yeah, had lots of fun.
Yeah.
And you can do fun. It doesn't have to be traumatic.
Yeah, that's right. And that is what we love about these conversations, is getting down to the real tea of things.
Yeah. The
truth. Unlayering the programs and having these conversations, I feel, are so important to introduce people to these concepts and talk about it.
Yeah. Yes. Because when you talk about your own experience, it resonates to others from their own experience. It's just, really amazing talk. Like, I don't know. I always feel amazing after these. So it's been an hour, which is our time for today. Doesn't feel like an hour at all.
No, it's gone so quick.
No, it went really.
Oh, sorry.
I said it did go. It went really fast.
Yeah, it did.
Well, we'll have you back on. Will you come back again?
Maybe. Possibly. Probably. My higher self does these tricks on me. My higher self says, you need to go and do this. So I'll go, okay, I'm going to go and do it. And then I'm all right for a few days. And then I go, oh, my God, who made me do that? What was I thinking? Obviously, I wasn't thinking. How did that happen? So, it's sort of like more spare of the moment with me. If I book something 6 weeks in advance, I don't know what I'll be doing then. What space will I be in?
Yeah, right.
Natural thing. And I think that's why I'm with Todd, because he's very good with it. He's absolutely his natural space. I prefer to be in the background, a little bit more quiet, working one-on-one or in groups or with couples or stuff like that. But maybe. Okay, you never know.
We'll see how we go. We'll invite you back, and if you're available, the stage is yours.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. I love that you're both doing this, and it's really fascinating listening to the different age groups. The younger woman, the old, middle, no, the mother,
the older woman,
the daughter, and the mother. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Complete? Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.